You are not a cold person. You are not a pathological introvert. You are a soul in unconscious vigilance. What if your silence, your constant need for retreat, wasn't a personality trait, but a survival armor built, brick by brick, to protect a heart that was wounded because it wasn't heard? In this personal development and spirituality gathering, we will dive deep into the origin of this adaptive inhibition. You will understand why you feel exhausted from rehearsing conversations before they even happen, and why your greatest fear is being labeled as dramatic or sensitive. This is a journey of self-knowledge to deactivate the defense mechanism that traps you in silence, finding your inner sanctuary and the emotional freedom your soul yearns for. You isolated yourself because you discovered, too early, that vulnerability was dangerous. You became silent because you realized your voice wasn't taken seriously. This is not a character flaw. It is a rational response to an irrational environment. Today, we feel exhausted in a crowd because we are constantly reading the room, deciphering moods, vigilant about what we can and cannot say. All healing begins with accepting what hurts. And the pain here is the loneliness of someone who needs to hide to be truly safe. In this path of spiritual awakening, we invite you to understand your inner journey not as an escape, but as the only way to reconnect with your essential truth. It is time to recognize the hidden wisdom in your pain so that inner transformation can finally begin. Follow me on this journey through 7 stages of clarity. Introversion, when born of trauma, is the name we give to adaptive inhibition. It is not the way you recharge your energy. It is the way you conserve it to survive in an emotional minefield. The fear of not belonging becomes your silent jailer, and the prison is your own mind. Remember, not all pain is punishment. Some are invitations. The invitation here is to understand that isolation is the protection of a past, but it cannot be the life plan for your future. You learned that the easiest way to avoid criticism or shame was not to expose yourself. Inner silence became your refuge, but also your glass ceiling. To break this prison, we first need to recognize that forced introversion is a mechanism of grief, the mourning for the voice that was never validated and for the presence that was never celebrated. Wisdom begins when you stop fighting against what you feel. And the cost of this silence, the cost of this armor, is your vital energy, spent in a state of constant alert that I call emotional vigilance. Your excessive sensitivity, which you are told is a flaw, is actually proof of your unconscious vigilance. You developed an almost psychic ability to read the mood, tension, and expectation of others before you even open your mouth. This listening of the soul was trained not by contemplation, but by the fear of punishment. The psychologist Abraham Maslow taught us that before seeking self-actualization, the flourishing of your essential self, the fullness of your potential, we need basic safety and belonging. The child who does not feel safe and does not feel they belong, freezes. Emotional vigilance is your subconscious mind on high alert, spending 90% of your energy just to ensure your basic needs for safety are met. And this is deeply exhausting, blocking all your energy for creation, for love, for spiritual truth. For the awakening of consciousness, you need to teach your nervous system that the past is over. Your presence needs to be stronger than the memory of trauma. And it is this deep exhaustion, this constant overload, that Eckhart Tolle defines as the famous pain body. When the pain body, the reservoir of unprocessed emotional suffering in Eckhart Tolle's philosophy, is activated, it manifests as social burnout. You are not tired of people. You are tired of performing. You are exhausted from wearing the mask, from rehearsing your script, from calculating the effect of every word before you utter it. The pain body hates presence because presence disarms the ego. Therefore, the urgent need for solitude and inner silence is not just a preference, but a physiological necessity to turn off the alert system. In Tolle's contemplative view, peace begins when you become the observer of this pain, instead of being the actor of it. Solitude then becomes your inner sanctuary, the only place where you can finally breathe with awareness and disarm the invisible knot that was holding your heart. But there is a hidden gift in this story, a paradox that the poet Gibran had already unveiled, linking your wound to your wisdom. The poetry of the Lebanese Gibran Khalil Gibran reminds us that pain is the plough that opens the earth for the seed of spiritual awakening. Your paradox of coldness led you to a keen observation of life. Your capacity for empathy and wisdom was born precisely from the silent wound that forced you to observe, and not to act. Your depth is your gift, but it cannot be held hostage by the fear of exposure. Self-knowledge teaches us that the fear of exposure is, at its core, the fear of rejection. Healing happens when you reverse the polarity. Use your depth to create genuine connection, instead of protecting your pain, offer your truth. The soul is not in a hurry. It has rhythm, and the rhythm of your heart is the rhythm of unconditional love. It is an invitation for you to stop seeing vulnerability as a flaw and start seeing it as the only proof that you are real, human, and alive. But how do you disarm the need to rehearse every step, to seek perfection before acting? The Master Lao Tzu gives us the way. The perfectionism of the traumatized introvert is just the extension of unconscious vigilance. You feel you need to create Emmy-worthy scripts, to go to the supermarket, rehearsing every word, because you feel that any slip will be proof of your inadequacy. Lao Tzu, the master of Taoism, offers a radical antidote, Wei Wu Wei, or effortless action. It is the fluidity of the river that meets the sea without fighting the bank. Wei Wu Wei is the invitation for you to stop forcing your presence and simply be. It's not about doing nothing, but about not doing with unnecessary effort. Your inner transformation will come when you release obsessive control over how others perceive you. Remember, it is not what happens outside. It is what vibrates inside. The inner path requires you to trust that your authenticity, in its simplest form, is already enough. And this trust is possible thanks to a miracle of our own biology, neuroplasticity, which allows us to rewrite identity. The science of neuroplasticity, your brain's ability to reorganize and form new connections, is your greatest ally in the journey of emotional healing. You spent your life under the command of an old program, exposure equals punishment. But the good news is that you have the authority to rewrite that code. The awakening of consciousness is, in essence, the act of becoming the parent you needed for your own system. You need to nurture the most vulnerable part of yourself with the kindness of the now. Teach your system that spiritual truth does not reside in avoiding suffering, but in facing it with wisdom and compassion. Speaking without fear is not an act of rebellion, but proof of your new emotional freedom, a deep reconnection with yourself. Your biology responds to your spirituality. Your body listens to everything your soul whispers. But the reality is that the wound was not limited to the home. It was reinforced by the world. And it is from this point of honesty that healing truly begins. Recent studies revealed that the wound is not just familial, it is systemic. Bullying at school, envy at work, and social incomprehension reinforced the need for adaptive inhibition. And here lies the paradox of coldness. You were criticized for being dramatic, and now you are criticized for being cold. Your coldness is your most logical defense. Healing does not begin in social performance. It begins in the inner sanctuary. Your solitude, your space, your silence are your sacred temple. Use this temple not to hide, but to strengthen yourself with presence. Allow yourself to be vulnerable and non-dramatic, that is, authentic, in your own space with yourself. From this unshakable center, your silent wisdom can begin to radiate to the world. The inner path is not for those who avoid the fight, but for those who choose the right battle, the battle for your truth and your peace. Your silence, which you judged to be a weakness, was actually the cave where your living soul preserved itself. You are not broken. You are in transition. Now, take a moment of inner silence. Gently close your lips and feel the air entering and leaving. Practice the breath of presence. Inhale the peace of your solitude and exhale the need for vigilance. Feel your inner strength, the mountain of wisdom that you are. Remember, you don't need to rehearse to be real. Just be here. Reflective question. What if your greatest emotional freedom lies precisely in allowing yourself to be, today, the adult who protects, welcomes, and finally listens to the child you were? If this message resonated with your internal exile, and if you yearn to transform loneliness into power, walk with us. Subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. Every week, we share the frequency the world tries to silence. Join us in the community. There, we discuss these topics in depth and create a sanctuary for the few, awakened ones. Leave your experience in the comments. Your sharing is also a seed of healing. You are not alone. We are just on a different frequency. And, to continue expanding your sanctuary of clarity, we suggest the video eye in the card. May it be a gentle breath on your journey. Peace and light.